Welcome! We're at video number 7 of our series, where you can learn how to build courage from chaos and live your best life. I'm Vanessa Wadusky, and I'm here with Tom Campbell.
Hi Vanessa, glad to be here again for one more episode.
Thank you, Tom. Glad to have you here. So today we're looking at the subconscious and also fear and what they have in common. Tom, can you talk to us about the subconscious mind?
Sure. The subconscious mind is handy for us. We have one because there's a lot of things that we really don't want to deal with. Mm-hmm. We have fears, but we want to kind of whitewash those fears to make them seem like we don't have them. We want to deny them, and we have a lot of strategies for how to do that. Like we mentioned in the last one, that if you have a fear that you're unworthy, you might be a shrinking violet, maybe one strategy, or you may be a bully, is another strategy. So we have strategies that basically help us deny the fear. So we the shrinking violet says, well, I really don't have fear, but I really don't want to go out there and socialize. I really don't. I just rather sit here and watch. And, they justify that that's a good thing. And they don't really say, well, I'm here because I'm terrified. That's why they're there, but they justify it in their mind. And the bully, gets out and bullies people. He doesn't feel like he's much, but he's going to try to convince himself that he is much by being tough. And if he's bigger than other people, then he can push those around. And because he's successful at pushing others around, he feels like he's pretty powerful. He's okay. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to trick himself that he doesn't have that fear, that he isn't what he fears, which is small and unworthy. So, so we need that. If we have fear, we need that subconscious. Is where that fear is. It's something that we don't want to deal with. We don't even want to know that it's there. We want to convince ourselves that we're just fine the way we are. And the problems we have are everybody else's problem, not our problem. So that subconscious keeps our fear. It keeps a lot of our emotion stays down there too. It's things that, like our buttons. When somebody pushes one of our buttons, what they're doing, that's a fear button. When you push a fear button, a lot of emotion pours up, right out of nowhere.
Yes.
Yes. That emotion. Our emotions are not intellectual. We don't say, oh, I think I'm going to get angry now.
No.
We don't, it's just the anger just roars up, right? So we keep that down there because we don't really want to know about that either. So we keep all that stuff down there in that part of our mind that we don't really want to deal with. So it's not in our conscious mind, it's in our subconscious mind where we're not really aware of it. So there's all sorts of issues down there. Some of them are big and growly and angry, and others are just hurt or whatever else. But it's the stuff that comes up automatically outside of our intellect. So we're saying that intellect is kind of our ego, and that subconscious is that part that's outside the intellect, because we don't think it just happens. That's why it's subconscious. Our intellect is conscious, and we do things because we want to, and because we think about doing them with our intellect. Well, Freud's model of the
human
mind,
psyche,
the human psyche of the mind, is we have, I guess from the top down, it's superego. That's that part of us that is more other-based. It's the part that is, what do we say?
Love.
It's the love part. What's the other word when it's about other?
Empathy.
What's the other
Compassion.
word? What's the other word?
Kind, caring. When you're about other?
Yeah, all those things, but it's...
Altruistic?
That's the word I'm looking for, altruistic. It's the part that's really about other. It's not the, well, what about me? It's what about them? What about other? So then you have the ego, which is, what about me? It's the intellectual sense of self, okay, as far as... Well, it's all of that. And then there's this id, which is your instincts, which the id's probably a part of the subconscious. Most of those instincts are subconscious. So then you have the subconscious, which is all the things that are you that you don't think.
Right. This is a model that Freud created to explain things that he saw.
Right. And Freud was an experimentalist. He wasn't a theorist. He didn't say, I theorize that the psyche is this way. He said, I've talked to 500 people, and here's how I found them. And he found that almost everybody had an ego. And these are people who were, well, they functioned in life, they were successful, they were this and they're that, and they were getting along okay, and they had the ego. So Freud says the ego is a necessary part of us. It's a good, healthy, necessary part of us because healthy, good people seem to all have ego. What he didn't realize that normal, healthy people who seem to be doing all right in our culture are full of fear. They're a low quality of consciousness in general, and they're just full of fear. And he said, well, some people have the superego. Some don't really have much superego. Some have a lot of it, but they're unusual. Only a few people have this sense of other, sense of something bigger than themselves, something else besides me. And so that was a thing that he saw occasionally. So he said, this is probably a good thing, but a lot of people don't have that and a lot of strength. Then the subconscious was all the stuff that pours out that's not coming out of the mind. It's not being thought. Okay, so then that's where everything else went. So it's just like kind of a catch-all where everything went in there. And of course, in there, you also have the id, that's your instinct. So that was his model. And it's just his experience of people and his interpretation. Well, he didn't know that most everybody is full of fear. That wasn't his understanding. Normal people must be the way they're supposed to be. What he did not realize is that this fear is dysfunctional. And though people seem to be normal, well, they are normal. The normal person is full of fear, and that fear is very dysfunctional in normal people. And normal people more often have dysfunctional families and dysfunctional lives than they have functional ones. But they still keep jobs and go through society and seem to be reasonably successful and so on. So he didn't get that thing about fear.
Right. Yeah, the subconscious mind. What I really like is that before I came across your model, I was always confused by the subconscious mind, or I was always struggling to access my subconscious mind and trying all these different things to make a change happen at the subconscious level, like hypnosis, EFT, therapy, so many different things. And then when I came across your model and I heard you explain it, it made it very simple and easy to understand the way you described it.
Well, we do have to change ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to change who we are at the core. And when we do, our conscious, subconscious, ego, superego, everything changes. When we change ourselves, all of that does change, and it's necessary for us to do that. But the ego is a what do you call it, a pathological thing, because it's based on fear. And the subconscious is also a pathological thing, because it's where we throw all the fear and all the other junk that we don't want to look at.
Right.
That's there too. So a lot of our feelings come out of this subconscious. So the subconscious is a part of us, just like the ego is a part of us, and the id and the superconscious are all a part of us. But the ego and the subconscious are really fear-based. If we don't have any fear, then we don't have any ego, and we don't have any subconscious. The subconscious goes away. And then we are a being that is aware of all parts of us. We're aware of our superego, our altruism, our caring, our love, and we are aware of our feelings. We're aware of all of us. We're aware of our instincts, and all of those are there and present. It doesn't mean we're a slave to them. It just means we're aware of them, and they're a part of us. They're nothing's hidden.
Right.
So when you get rid of fear, there is nothing hidden. You're a whole person.
And when you become authentic, So you can even still have some fear, possibly.
Yes, you can be authentic, and authentically you have a lot of fear. You have a lot of fear in being authentic. It just means it is who you are. You're not living an image. You're not covering things up. It means the bully stops bullying and realizes he feels really inadequate and really bad about himself. That's authentic. Strutting your stuff and beating your chest and saying, I'm really good, I'm better than everybody, when you think you're worse than everybody, that's being inauthentic. So when you're authentic, you may be aware that, yeah, you have fear, but at least you're authentic.
Right. So is that then, so when you're authentic then, and you're aware of these insecurities and fears, you no longer have this kind of part that's hidden. You no longer really have a subconscious that's driving you in ways that you're unaware of.
Once you're an authentic person, you are who you are. Okay. And when you can have authentic and be fear, so you may still have a subconscious and be authentic because you still have fear that you don't want to see. But you're authentic, so you look at it and you're trying to get past the fear. But so having fear and being authentic aren't mutually incompatible. But the more you are authentic, the more you're able to get rid of fear, and the smaller your subconscious becomes. So when you get rid of all the fear and you are being of love, then there's no hidden parts. You're a whole person. So the subconscious isn't that part where mystical things happen. It's not that part that you try to program.
Yeah.
You can program things there, but it's really a dysfunctional part. It's a pathological part that's there just because you have fear.
And we've hidden it. And the fear has been too painful for us to look at or admit, so we've hidden it and call it our subconscious.
Yeah, people don't want to feel that they are inadequate. They want to be adequate. So they put on a show for themselves as much as anybody else to prove to themselves that they're not inadequate. But that's not being authentic. And it is, then you need the subconscious that hides all that stuff. But because it's kind of this unknown secret part, then when we do things that aren't intellectual, we say, oh, well, we can work with our subconscious. We can do all this stuff in our subconscious, because that's the part that's not intellectual, and we know that to succeed in these things, we need to let the intellect go. So therefore, the source of being there is really the subconscious. Well, that's wrong. It's not like that. Well, I shouldn't say that's wrong. It's not, my model says that's not necessary. The subconscious is not the source of spirituality, or the source of the core of the being. When I talk about the being level, I don't mean the subconscious. The subconscious is part of that being level. If you have fear, part of your being is hidden from you. But it's a part that needs to go away. So we don't have a subconscious normally. But Freud didn't know that, because Freud said, well, everybody seems to have this subconscious because everybody's up to here with fear.
Right.
So of course they do. So then it became a normal, healthy thing that everybody has as a subconscious.
Yeah, and there's been models of psychotherapy built upon that. Like the one main one is that picture of the iceberg that's like submerged, right? And 90% of it you don't see, and you only see the tip. And they explain that that's us. 90% of it we don't know, we don't see. That's our subconscious. We only have the little tip.
And that's our little intellect up there trying to run us with its image.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to run the image of us.
And the rest is all.
And all the rest is our fear and stuff that's just out of sight.
That we don't want to look at, or we don't want to admit to ourselves or others.
Yeah, we don't want to deal with our instincts.
Yeah.
They can push us or drive us this way or the other, and we're always excusing them. Well, why did you do that? Well, we'll come up with some reason. We won't say, well, it's just the way I am. It's an instinct of mine, and I need to curtail that, or I need to not curtail that, whatever. We don't say that. We make up stories, and we suppress a lot of that kind of stuff. But, you at that being level, when you're hungry, when you're frustrated, when you're whatever, whatever it is, about it. It's not like there's any part of you that just suddenly pops up and startles you because it starts crying or something for no reason. It just starts bawling because who knows why. It's all that subconscious stuff is down there and it's a problem.
Right.
Well, yeah. So I would agree that little tip of the iceberg is mostly our intellect.
And the rest is our fear.
And the rest is our fear.
So it's like that fear is driving us, and then the intellect justifies why we have the fear, why we behave the way we behave. Which
behave.
only keeps the fear in place and
Right.
doesn't help us to let it go, which is the whole point.
All those buttons people have, when you hit a button, you hit somebody's button and they get an emotional reaction to it and they get unhappy, and a negative reaction usually when you hit a button makes them angry, makes them upset, makes them cry, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's all in that subconscious. That's why you need it's a button, because you do something and it triggers something else that comes out as ugliness.
Right. Whereas if you clear that subconscious, there's nothing to push, and then you don't get a reaction. There's no triggers.
There's no buttons. There's nothing in the subconscious.
Exactly.
So it's just not there. So the subconscious is just pathological is just a word that means it's unhealthy. It's not a healthy part of a psyche. But it is a common and normal part of a psyche. Normal in the math sense that normal means most everybody has it. It's normal. It's average. And that's, so the Freudian model was based on what's average.
Right.
What he looked at, and he defined it good if people seem to be doing all right, and bad if they didn't. So that was his model, and it just misses the point that fear versus love is really the key element that drives people.
Yeah.
And your quality of consciousness is the key thing that drives people. So that's why the model is a good model, because it helps explain these things.
Right.
Because it makes a lot of sense. Why would we carry around a part of us that isn't known?
Yeah.
That we can't access?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the advantage in that?
There is no advantage.
No.
Yeah.
It's just because we're neurotic and we don't want to show these fears or whatever. We keep them down. We don't want to admit them to ourselves, much less anybody else to see them. We're ashamed of them.
Which only keeps them buried in there even deeper. We have
bigger.
shame, layers of shame.
Yeah, they just get bigger and bigger. So Freud did the best he could, but he didn't have theory to help explain to him how things work.
Right.
So he didn't have the structures. That's what we said that MBT was. It was a structure in which people could find themselves and what's there.
Yeah.
Well, if you have that structure and you understand that we're here to lower entropy and that fear is the problem, love is the answer to that problem, then the fact that we have ego, which is self-centeredness, all it's about me. Now some people will say, well, wait a minute, the ego is just self-awareness. It's not just self-awareness.
No.
You can be self-aware and in love, I mean, you can be a person of love and you're still self-aware. It's not like you forget who you are and don't have an identity.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not all about me. It's about other people. You still know who you are and you still have an identity.
Right.
So it's not that the ego is your identity.
No.
Not that at all.
We don't need it. Just like we don't need fear. We're better off without the fear.
When you are, if you're pure love, you have an identity. If you're fear, you have an identity.
Yeah.
You have an identity as yourself.
Right.
That doesn't depend on, superego, ego, it or anything else.
No.
That's just what you have.
That's you, yeah.
So that's not what ego is. It's not just someone's sense of themselves. It's a sense of someone who is full of fears.
Right.
Self.
Exactly. And so that's why I'm really grateful for your model, because it makes it simple and easy to understand. It doesn't. The subconscious is no longer this mysterious thing,
Right.
and changing ourselves is no longer. I mean, it still takes work and effort, but it's not as difficult as it was before when we're left in the dark, not understanding why we are the way we are. Because what your model has done is it's kind of lifted the veil, and it's shown that you are the way you are because you have this fear. Instead of the old way is you are the way you are because you have the subconscious mind and you'll never be able to access the subconscious mind because it's submerged and you can't see it. Like that doesn't help anybody.
No.
But
it really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You see, it's just a model that Freud made because that's the way people were. People had this, they had buttons all over. When you push those buttons, stuff roared out from someplace. Well,
Right.
where? Well, you weren't aware of it, so it must be below consciousness. So everybody had this subconsciousness. Well, they only had it because they also have fear.
That nobody wanted to admit.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to admit that they
So
have
it
fear.
wasn't up here because you disown it. You don't want to admit it, so it's not in your consciousness.
Right. And so your model, like I said, it helps us to own it because we can see it as, oh, it's my fear. And once I can accept my fear, I can actually do something to work through it and let it go. And then that's how I change myself. It's possible. It's doable. So I'm really grateful for your model. Thank you, Tom, for sharing with us more about your model and fear and the subconscious mind and how that all works. Thank you for tuning in with us. And make sure to join us next week where we're going to talk about trauma.